I'm Brian Patterson, and this is my story. God actually started working in my life long before I was ever born. It actually starts with my grandparents. My grandparents got married when she was 16 and he was 19. A year later, my mom came along. They really wanted a boy, so they tried again. A year after that came my Aunt Cindy. Still no boy, so they tried again. 2 years after that, they had my Aunt Charmaine. 3 girls by age 22, and they still had no boy, so they tried again. By age 24, my mom had my Aunt Jackie. They had 4 girls. Imagine being 24 years old with 4 girls, the oldest being 7 years old. So there they were with 4 children, and him sometimes working as many as 3 jobs. Forward from there, 18 years, my mom being the oldest and decided she was ready to get out, having grown up in a very strict environment, decided that she was ready to get out. Her ticket to freedom, or so she thought, was to get married. So she married one of her high school sweethearts and proceeded to have my 2 older sisters. My oldest sister is 3.5 years older than I am, and my other sister is about 2.5 years older than I am. During that time, that marriage between my mom and her high school sweetheart deteriorated, and they separated. My mom met my dad, and he proceeded to pay for her divorce, and he also adopted my 2 older sisters. My mom and my dad slowly got into a more and more of a rocky relationship. Within 2 years, they started really having troubles. My mom decided that she wanted to go back to school to get the education that she had never had. It was there at getting that education at school that she got mixed up in drugs and alcohol, and I think a lot of that stemmed from her desire to have freedom and having children at such a young age. She got into a lot of drugs, had a lot of problems, and mixed in with this, had some mental troubles. She was in and out of jail, in and out of mental rehab facilities, but some way or another she always found a way to get out. I can remember as a toddler there being some tremendous fights between my mom and my dad. They would throw everything from furniture to toys, you name it, everything except for us. I can remember playing down the street one day and watching my mom ride by in the back of a patrol car. I can also remember one night spending the night in a local hotel because my mom had called my dad and said she was coming to shoot up the house. And sure enough, she did. There were 2 holes above the front door, 2 bullet holes in the garage where she thought my dad was keeping his boat, and a few holes across the street in the neighbor's car because I'd been told at one time they were supplying her with drugs. But she was in and out of our lives. We got to see her some here and there, but it was a struggle. So there we were, my dad being a single parent trying to raise 3 kids, all the while working a swing shift at graveyard at Georgetown Steel. We ran wild on the weekends and after school. The ER for us was our second home. I can remember one day that my sister chased me into the corner of the wall, and I got to go to the hospital and get stitches. And for me, the thing I remember most as a child was how pretty the nurses were. I can also remember going down the street one day and finding some of the little orange berries on a neighbor's bush and filling my ears with them, and again, I got to go to the ER and get my ears cleaned out. It was just, for us, church was just something we did on special occasions such as Christmas and Easter and when we went to see our grandparents, and that was only because we had to. Life in Georgetown came to an end when I was 8 years old, towards the end of the 3rd grade. We came to Florence, of all places, to see my mom and some man she happened to be living with, and we spent the weekend with her. The weekend went fine until my dad came to pick us up on Sunday afternoon. I can remember there being a tremendous fight and not knowing exactly why. So we left to go home that Sunday night, just my dad and my sister stayed back in Florence. I went to school the next day. It was a normal day at school. And when I got home, my dad said, "Son, we need to ride downtown for a few minutes." And I said, "Okay." We got in the car and rode down to the local police station. I can remember all of my family being there, my sisters, my mom, all 3 sets of grandparents, which were my grandparents from my sister's and my mom's first marriage, were all there. I will never forget the fear in my dad's eyes as the police walked over and asked him for his house keys and proceeded to arrest him. What was going on, I didn't understand. I was crying, and all my mom could ask me was, "Why are you crying? Are you crying because he hurt you? Why would my dad hurt me? What was going on?" I didn't understand It was just a terrible situation. Everything was changing. And I wouldn't find out until later that my dad was involved in an inappropriate relationship with my oldest sister, who was in the 7th grade at the time. That night, we left the police station with my grandparents, my sister's grandparents, and went by the house long enough to get our belongings and leave. I begged and pleaded to stay one more day to tell all my friends bye, but they said no. Imagine being in the 3rd grade at 8 years old and having your life turned completely upside down in just a matter of hours. It was tremendously tough. We moved to Scranton then with my sister's grandparents, and I hated it. I hated school. I didn't have any friends. The bus ride was an hour both ways every day, and it was miserable. The only thing semi-constant in my life at the time was my sisters, and that would soon change too. During the summer that summer, I was lying on the couch at opposite ends with my sister, Laura, and being the younger brother, just doing what younger brothers do, I reached over and pinched her on the rear end. We got in trouble and they separated us. A little while later, I went back and did it again, not thinking anything of it, and then I was severely scolded and sent to my room. I didn't understand. I was being punished and didn't know why. That afternoon, my granddad, my mother's dad, came to pick me up to go live with them. Again, it felt like I was being punished and I didn't know why. I was separated from my sisters. It turns out to be, and again I wouldn't find out until years later, that there had been a tremendous court case over my custody, and my grandparents, as I mentioned earlier, having always wanted to raise a son, wanted me. I didn't know that. My mom during that time also fought them tooth and nail, considering everything they had done for her over the years of helping her get in and out of jail. She fought it, but they were able to win the court case. And my granddad just assumed that I had been through enough not to tell me what was going on in the court case.